Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Today, we'll be interviewing Lea Chapin, who is an author of 3 books and is known as a divine oracle, channeling the Holy Family. And Lea has been in her spiritual path for 33 years. This is her anniversary week, and we're interviewing Lea to ask her about how she got started in this field and her adventures in traveling the world and doing the work of spirit. My co-host today is Sonny McCauley.
Hi. We'll be asking Lea many questions about her 3 books that she has authored, and she has more books that she will be authoring. A lot of her spiritual journeys and all of the different things that she does, you can see on her website, leachapin.com, where you can have personal readings. She has classes that you can take, many things. So sit back and enjoy.
And at the very end of our interview, for those of you who wish to stick around, Lea is going to do a live channeling session with Yeshua. I hope you'll join us. Welcome, Sonny and Lea.
Yeah, welcome.
This is in honor of your 33rd anniversary of working with spirit, channeling.
Yeah.
And I just thought it would be a great thing to do, to get in the studio and to have some stories and tell us about your books and your travels. And we have here with us, very glad to have Sonny McCauley.
Thank you.
And Lea Chapin, our heroine of the day. And my name is James Ward, and we're just going to have a little chat for some time, and I'm going to pepper you with questions and see what comes up.
My 33 channeling anniversary is March 21st.
Yeah.
And so thank you for making this happen. I was thinking about, it's 33 years. That's a powerful number.
Yeah.
And then you've made it into a powerful celebration. So thank you.
You will.
Thank you.
I know that you've traveled the world doing your missions.
I have.
You have, yes. And you channeled many different people and beings through the years, and you've done a lot of personal readings for people, and you've done work with the ley lines and the energy vortices around the world. And so I just thought this is a momentous occasion. So our first question is, how did you get started down this path?
Into metaphysics or channeling?
Yeah, I'm like, what was... Sometimes they ask the question, what did you do before all this craziness happened?
That's right. What was my life like before? It started when I was 26, actually. I was working as a mental health therapist in a small mental health center. And I always just felt there was more to my life than what I was doing, but I didn't know what it was. And for whatever reason, I decided I was going to move to Tampa, Florida. And that was the beginning of my soul journey. And I ended up getting a mental health job in Lakeland, Florida, meeting my spiritual mentor, Cecilia Kelly. And she introduced me to metaphysics and all esoteric teachings. And she was a wonderful teacher. And so I remember being a very young therapist, and I was picking her brain constantly, driving her insane. And during that period of time, I had a reading with a lady named Pam from Grants Pass, Oregon, who told me at that time, I think I was around 30, that I had the ability to channel. And she told me about a guide named Gran that she was bringing forth in my reading to me as my personal guide. That was 1986. And then my life changed. I moved back to Illinois. I went to massage school, started my own massage practice. And 7 years later, I was getting a Reiki session, and I had completely forgotten about channeling. I was on to another career. And lo and behold, on that day, on March 21st, 1993, I began to spontaneously channel Gran, to my surprise. So I've been able to do the work with spirit ever since then. And so I worked with Gran for 4 years. And then I started working with the archangels and the Holy Family. So that was the beginning of my work for the past 33 years.
And you would do personal readings for people?
In the early days, I had no clue what I was doing. I remember getting together with a small group of people and doing small channeling. But then I started doing personal readings with people in person. And then at one point, I discovered I could probably do readings on the telephone. Why not? And so I started working with people internationally and nationally across the country and here in the US. And I just continue to do private readings for people. I consider myself a spiritual counselor because I have a master's degree in counseling and have all my years in training as a psychotherapist. And then when Spirit came initially through Grand and then through the years, I began to develop a spiritual counseling practice where I call it psycho-spiritual counseling, where I'm helping people understand aspects of their life from a higher perspective. And so I do a lot of work with past life work. I do a lot of energetic clearings with Spirit. Archangel Michael typically is the one who works with me now, primarily in terms of my readings, but I'm a versatile channel, so I can bring any being of light that is of the light through. I've had worked with more beings than I could even count, so I'm not limited to one being. But in the beginning, Grand came through in those first 4 years and laid that foundation for me to begin to work with him and build my confidence. Then I remembered in 1997, I started working with the archangels, and I remember Archangel Michael saying, "Don't you remember me?" And I'm like,
Wow.
"I don't remember you. No, I'm sorry, I don't remember you." And then I worked with the archangels, and then I think it was the same year, 1997, I started working with the Holy Family. And then that was really a surprise. So I was like, okay, I'm not really particularly religious. I believed in God, but it was like, why is the Holy Family coming to me? Because I started working with Mother Mary and Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And then I've come to understand that storyline of my connection to them, which leads into, I guess, what you want to ask.
Let's talk about that. I would love to talk about your past life as Elizabeth, who was cousin to Yeshua.
Yes. Those memories came. I can't tell you exactly when they came, but I'm sure it was in that same time frame because I was really confused about why they were coming. It was like, this is really perplexing. And I was new at this, and so I don't have all the wisdom that I do now or all the wealth of work that I have through these 33 years. So I was trying to figure all this stuff out by myself because I lived in a small town in Galesburg, Illinois in the Midwest, and I had really nobody to help me. Even my teacher, my spiritual teacher, Cecilia, was not really able to help me, to mentor me through this. What happened was I moved forward and advanced my wisdom on my own. So all of my teachings and all of my knowledge has really come through my work with Spirit. And so I call it being self-trained. That time with Elizabeth, when it showed up, all came through my channeling through Joshua and Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary. Elizabeth, as my understanding, I have a few memories of her, but I feel her essence. She was Joshua's cousin. She was raised by Mother Mary. She was Mary Magdalene's best friend. And she was completely and totally devoted. She was a part of the inner circle. And during that time, she was privy to what was called the Great Design, which was Joshua's so-called crucifixion and his resurrection. And so she was a part of that inner circle of Mother Mary, Joshua, Mary Magdalene, and herself. And she was a natural healer, connected to the divine, and was also trained and studied with Mother Mary. I don't know if she went to the mystery schools or not, but I do know she was trained by Mother Mary because I have those memories of me sitting in the garden with Mother Mary and studying and listening to her. The only other memory I have very clearly is when she was helping Joshua in the tomb after the crucifixion. And she was helping him to bring forth the resurrection of his energy. And I see her kneeling above him or below, next to him, and helping him to resurrect his energy. I do recall and remember being in the crowd as well, because Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Elizabeth, and 2 other of the female disciples were the pillars that were anchoring the light, holding the energy grid for Christ during that time on the cross, being in the crowd and holding and anchoring that energy for him so that he could continue to live on. But the memory of being in the tomb is really, really, really strong within me. I really connect with that. And I also connect with her essence. She was very gentle. She was very wise. She was compassionate. She was very, very strong. And she didn't like attention upon herself. And she held a lot of great wisdom, but she was always sort of in the background, the one that was holding the energy and the strength and holding the energy for Jeshua. I was told and remembered that she died after the crucifixion because she had given her energy and her strength to him. And she died very young. She had never married, and that she had completely and devoted her life to Jeshua. That's what I remember about Elizabeth.
A lot like your life today.
I'm very devoted. Since that day of March 21st, 1993, when Gran came, I have been devoted to Spirit, not in a religious way, but in a way of seeking understanding of my life and understanding universal principles and really trying to help other people to live better lives and have healthier lives. As a psychotherapist, I think in many ways that this was like a perfect marriage for me to be able to do my channeling work because I was trained as a psychotherapist. And I knew when I was young that I wanted to be a therapist. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and I always thought, well, maybe that was why I wanted to go into therapy. But I think it was more than that. It was really my destiny to be able to have that education and training. I had lots of blessings to be able to get my master's degree. One of the blessings that I didn't even realize at the time was I got a free master's degree. I did not have to pay for my master's degree. I was chosen as one of the assistants for my department. And so my tuition was paid for, my board was paid for, and it was like later it was like, what a gift. Who gets a free master's degree? So I know Spirit was behind that. I was 21. I graduated with my master's degree in 79. And so I guess I was 23 when I completed that work. So looking back on my life, I can see that I've been prepared to do the work that I have done the last 33 years plus. So anyhow, that is the story of Elizabeth. So,
well, you said something that was very interesting to me, Mary and the other female disciples. So I read a little bit about that, and I'm very interested in Yeshua had his 12 disciples. Did Mother Mary also have 12 female disciples?
Well, he did.
He had female disciples.
Yeah, and Elizabeth was one of the female disciples.
Okay.
So I can't name up all the names, but there were 12 women, just as Joshua had the 12 male disciples. At that time, as you probably know, the women were not honored or recognized for their power, but they were really the ones that were holding the frequency and the power of the divine feminine energy to support Jeshua's ministry and to help him to move forward into his work. So they were the foundation and the energy behind him to do what he needed to do and that support. Mary Magdalene also, as we know, was one of his disciples, but also she was a powerhouse within her own. And she was trained in studying the mystery schools with Priestess Isis. And so she was not given the credit, of course, in the Bible and through the course of history of the power of who she is because of the fear of her power. And as we know, the fear of the power of the sacred feminine. So the women were the ones behind the scenes helping them.
It seems that the Essenes of that time were essentially a matriarchal society. They were Grandmother Anna kind of...
Yes, ruled the roost there.
Yes, and very long-lived and very wise and bore so many children who were part of your family. And so, and it makes sense. And it seems that the feminine aspect has been suppressed so heavily through the church in these years.
It has, the power of the sacred feminine. That's why we're moving into this beautiful time of awakening the sacred feminine, or the feminine coming back into power. Yeah. But Grandmother Anna was the head of the Essene community. And for those who may follow my work on YouTube, I have done the Essene channeling for several years now. The Essenes came to me when I was actually in Jordan on one of those sacred trips. We were at the Dead Sea, and the Essenes came to me at that time. We were at the Dead Sea. We were right across from Mount Carmel. And I heard the Essenes say, "We've been waiting for you." I'm like, okay. So I have strange experiences. So I was like, alrighty then. But then I don't know when it was. Maybe it was a year later. I can't remember. Then I started working with the Essenes. And then once a month, I would channel the collective voices of the Essenes. And then Grandmother Anna would come in as the matriarch of the Essenes and help us to understand our life as the Essenes, help us to be more empowered. And of course, their mission was all about peace. So helping us to be at peace and helping our planet to return to peace. I stopped doing that Essene monthly class just a month ago when I now been called to teach something different. So my time there is with them was really important in the sense that of remembering that we are part of this spiritual community and that these players are coming back together, because they told me that the reason I was doing this because many people felt like they were part of the Essene community. And so my group was to help people remember their aspect of the Essene community and to feel that sense of, I'll call it just the foundation of what was called the way, because they followed the practice of the way, living very simply, but very connected to the earth. Men and women were treated equally. The children were honored. The earth was honored. So there was a lot of information. I don't know how many years I did that teachings. Several, I think. Might have been 4. You can find that on my YouTube channel if you have any interest.
I was fortunate to participate in a lot of those weekly phone calls, and it was so delightful to have you channel
Grandmother Anna. Well, how did that help you? I mean, how did that affect you?
I would say it opened my heart. It was just like, yeah, because it made it real. Kind of like, okay, yeah, they're talking to me or to us as a group, and it's they are not in the body that I can see, but the spirit and the wisdom is there. So,
you could feel them.
Yeah, I feel them.
Yeah.
And so there were some really profound messages, and at the end of those, I would just be in silence. It's just like couldn't really speak. It was really lovely.
Yeah.
So, and then going forward, you're going to do something a little bit different. And I know that life is always changing.
It's always changing. Yes.
Yeah.
But Grandmother Anna will still be there.
Oh, that's
She hasn't left us.
Yeah.
And the way is what they were talking about in the Bible. I am the way, the truth, and the light. Prior to meeting you, I would often in my prayers say that I would really like to learn directly from Yeshua or have a mystery school that I could go to and learn. And I feel like your book, The 12 Mastery Teachings of Christ, was sort of an answer to my prayers. I'm not sure the order of your books. Is this the first book?
Yeah.
Okay, can we talk about that? It's a beautiful book, and when I read it, I honestly felt like, okay, this is the answer. If I had been there with Jesus and listened to his teachings, which I think this is exactly what I would have learned. So it's a brilliant book for anyone to read who's interested in the teachings of Jesus.
Thank you. And the subtitle is The True Essence of His Teachings. So it's the synopsis of all that he taught in terms of the main principles. The first is love, and the last ends in joy. The lessons go in synchronistic order. There's love, power, truth, oneness, enlightenment, forgiveness, hope, faith, rejuvenation, remembrance, peace, and joy. We can't find joy until we open our heart to love. And so all of these lessons are the essence of his teachings. And when I finished the book, I published this in 2005. Yeah, wrote it in 2003, was channeled, but finished in 2005. When I got the book, it was really small. I thought, oh my gosh, I remember taking, like, what happened to my book? And I hear it in my head, of course, as I hear, because I telepathically hear the words of Spirit. I heard Christ telling me the book, it's maybe small, but it's very powerful. So this book is not a religious book. It really is just the essence of his teachings, but it's helping us to really move through and come into a state of peace and joy in our lives. So every chapter is, how do I say it, can be used to be read if you're struggling, feeling, having no faith or having no hope, or if you need to feel the sense of peace or joy. Those chapters you can reread. This is not a book you just reread and put down once. It's a working manual. My friend Joanne Weiland works with this book every single day. She's read this book and these chapters every single day, which is, I can't say I've done that, but she's done that, which is lovely. And so it's to be used when we need inspiration and to help us to move forward in our spiritual evolution, our spiritual growth. That was what it was designed for. Unfortunately, a lot of people that, I'll say if they're metaphysical, who might have issue with Joshua or Christ or that storyline, have not taken the time to really feel and understand the message, because sometimes people have judgments. A lot of people have judgments about the storyline of Jesus. So again, this is not religion. This is about self-empowerment. This is about helping us to really be at peace and find happiness and joy within ourselves, and to live and to experience living our lives in a way with ease and grace, with happiness and joy within our heart.
Interestingly, the power of that book for me was its simplicity and how short it was, because so many teachings are overcomplicated. And it's just like gets to the meat. It's like, this is what he taught.
Right.
And I remember talking to a person one time about joy, and I found it so interesting that joy is, you speak of joy as being the vibration of God, maybe?
Yeah, it's the last lesson, because it's the energy of what we say of all that is, the energy of oneness. So it is the energy of God. So that's the last lesson. So we're moving through these principles or these teachings to be able to connect to oneness, to joy, to the energy of the God essence.
And I loved that. And I remember this person, I said, I don't see your joy. Where is your joy in life? And she said to me, joy isn't that important to me. And that obviously put us into a spiral, because I was like, what? And I find that for a lot of really deeply religious people, they honor the suffering more than the joy. And so I think that was so powerful to me. I never had heard that before you, that joy was kind of the equivalent.
Yeah, to the essence of the God.
To the essence of God. I mean, that's so beautiful, because when you're a child, you're so full of joy, right? Yeah. So full of joy. Yeah. And we kind of lose that.
We do lose that.
And this helps us to find it. What was the second book that you wrote?
Divine Union.
Divine Union. Let's talk about that.
Well, this book was published in 2017. Took me about 4 years to finish it, because after I had done this book, that was 2005, I remember being a little bit afraid to put the storyline out, because I didn't know what people were going to think of me or the storyline. And so I had a lot of fear and trepidation about putting the story that I channeled Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and that they're twin flames and they were married and had a child and he didn't die. I've had a wonderful response to this book. It's helped people understand the storyline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and it's really helped them and a lot of people who've had issue with, well, say Jesus or Joshua, in terms of their own faith and how they were raised, that this story has softened their heart and allow them to have connection to Jesus in a more heartfelt way. Because I've had a lot of people who were resistant to anything about Jesus and what we've been told in the Bible and how he's been portrayed, and his energy has somehow been misused in many ways. But this is the story of, told in their own words, Joshua and Mary Magdalene's words. They're the narrative of Mary speaking and Joshua speaking about their life as childhood friends. They actually were family members, but they were friends. And about their journey of their own spiritual awakening in terms of being able to come into union and partner and come into oneness with themselves, but also talks about their love story and all the trials and tribulations of their life and how difficult it was to live in that time and to be spiritual adepts and to be way showers and to be teachers of spiritual principles in that time of darkness, because they had to hide a lot what they did. And Mary had to hide who she was because she was misunderstood or portrayed not in the true power of herself. And so there was a lot of secrecy and hiding. And so this story talks about who they truly are and their life together. The greater purpose of this book, besides the fact that they're twin flames, and people like this story because they get caught up in the issue of twin flames, because many people are looking to find their twin flames, and people are focused on finding their life partner or the love of their life, and that's sort of our culture. In some ways is a teaser, but in a sense, the real mission or the real message of it was they had to come into what we call wholeness and balance within themselves. I call it partnering with themselves, which is divine union, which is the title. They're coming into oneness with their own strength and essence of their own God presence, their I am presence. And so this is really the message of the story. I would like this story to be made into a movie because I think it's really important for our culture to understand that it's important for us to be whole within ourselves, to be sovereign in our own energy field, and to be able to stop looking outside of ourselves and externalizing that somebody else is going to fulfill us and bring us the happiness and peace. Yes, a partner can bring another aspect into our life, but unfortunately, our culture is not trained to teach us that. We're not taught that by our parents or in their school system.
Or by example.
For example, to be in union with ourselves, to be able to be in a space where you're comfortable in your own skin, let's put it that way, instead of externalizing. I think having a partner where they used to say, where's your better half, or your other half or your better half. They used to say that. I don't know if they still say
they
that.
still do.
And so it's about coming into that state of wholeness. Then you have a better chance of meeting your life partner because two people are whole instead of two wounded people. So most of us in our society are wounded for one reason or another, from just by the sheer fact of how we were raised, if we have childhood trauma or just societal conditioning. We all have come in with wounds and issues, and then we bring two wounded people together, and then they have children, and then the children get wounded, and then the cycle continues. And so this is really what that book, and the reason I would want to come as a universal message, that so our society and our civilization can return to wholeness and balance, that our planet is suffering and humanity is suffering because, again, I think we talked about this, because of the division, the separation, the fear. But when we come into that place where we feel really aligned with ourselves, we have a better chance of making the world a better place, make our life a better place, and helping our planet to thrive and return back to the planet of peace and love in which it was created.
Because like attracts, well, if you're wounded, you attract a wounded partner. But if you heal yourself and you're whole, you attract another whole person.
Yeah. And we've all done it. I did it most of my life. And so they're showing up for me saying, you got to tell this storyline. So, which leads to how that happened for me.
Yes, let's talk about that. When you were writing the book, how did that affect your life, for you coming into your own? Did you already come into your own divine union before or after you wrote the book?
No, well, hopefully I have. I'm probably not 100%, but I think I'm much better than I used to be. I finished the book in Mount Shasta, California in February of 2017. I was there with my husband at the time and with my best friend. And as one has it, I heard a voice. And the voice said, people are going to be leaving your lives, and then you're going to be meeting movers and shakers. And I was like, okay, all righty then. Okay, thank you very much. And on that trip, it wasn't long, a few days later, my best friend got mad at me and left, and I haven't seen her since. And then that was February. And then in August of 2017, my husband came home one day and out of the blue told me he wanted to get a divorce. So I lost my best friend and my husband, essentially, all within a few months of hearing this voice. And now it's, 2026? And it was just until a couple years ago that I finally understood that the reason that I had to go through that voice was telling me was I was to come into divine union with myself, that these relationships were not compatible to who I was, but also that I needed to step into my own power again. I remember a long time ago, probably, I'll have to say probably 2023, I clearly remember this, was in my little massage office. And Isis said, you have to learn to be dependent, because I was very independent. I thought, no, I can't do that. In 2005, I felt finally called to marry my husband. I had been with him for 6 years. And so then I moved forward into more of a dependent relationship. And then now, as I wrote the book in 2017, they're like, okay, now wait a minute. Now you got to be interdependent. You've went to one stream and the other, and now have to come back into center. So this book really was, I had to live what I was writing. I had to live what Mary Magdalene and Jeshua were experiencing. And it was very painful. It's still difficult for me in many ways, but I feel more comfortable in my own skin. I feel more grounded and more centered than I ever have. And so I feel like I'm probably not 100% there, but I had to live this. I had to live what I was writing. And so that was the explanation to me of why all this happened that day and why I heard this voice preparing me, because we're given information if we listen. And then oftentimes we don't know what that's about until we go through it. And then when we also go through it, then we're like, what is this about? And then you get into your own stuff. And then it takes a while to sort through it.
But you led with faith because
I do.
You were in
Yeah.
obvious emotional pain, but you had faith that there was a reason.
I think the biggest thing for me, I'm really, really grateful, is when I started this work 33 years ago, and I don't know when I sort of shifted into this, but maybe in the beginning, I don't remember, but my work with spirit is very sacred to me. That's how I connect with Elizabeth. I mean, I really, like when I talk about it, I could cry. It's a real deep emotion that I feel. My work is very sacred. I surrender and have faith and devotion, even if I don't know what I'm doing. I do lots of things that people don't understand, but somehow things always seem to work out for me. Like my sister said to me, which was really kind of funny. She said, you know, the family thinks that you're strange or weird or whatever, because whatever I do, but she says, I had to laugh, things seem to work out for you. She couldn't figure out why things work out for me. You're so weird, but things work out for you. She couldn't figure it out. And there's no reason to explain to her, but it's because of my faith and my devotion and my connection to spirit. And so I truly know that I'm protected. I know that they're guiding my life, and that for me, I listen to my own soul guidance. I listen to the guidance of spirit, and that I try, as they say, to walk my talk in terms of what I'm hearing and what I'm experiencing through my life, in terms of being able to walk my soul pathway.
It seems as if you're very surrendered to the will of God.
I think so, because I do a lot of things that most people do. Yeah, even if it doesn't make any sense, I do it anyway. Like writing books, and I'm not really a writer. I can always say I'm not really a writer, but I'm a good channeler. But I think, I'm not a very good writer. Why do they keep asking me to write books? I keep doing it anyway.
And you're not from Hollywood, but we need to find somebody who wants to produce this movie, because it would make a fabulous movie, and I think the world's ready for it.
Yeah, the message is, to me, is really important, because our world is out of balance, and we're even more divisive, like we talked about, and people are in fear. And if we could come back into balance with ourselves, can you imagine what our world would look like when people are healthy and balanced and whole and loving and peaceful? I mean, we all know what's happening in our world, and it seems to be falling more and more apart. But as Spirit says, things have to crumble in order for the new to be formed. So we are actually in a new frequency, in a new vibration that is crumbling the old patriarchal control so that the sacred feminine, the energy of love, peace, all that we're talking about, all that Jeshua is speaking about in his work, and Mary Magdalene and Sarah are speaking about, can merge forward. Will I see that in my lifetime? Probably not. But I'm here to help, as many others are, to bring this message forward and to help people understand that they can be the change that they wish to see, because we really can. Our influence upon people is more powerful than we realize. If we hold the space of love and peace within our heart, we can really make a difference. I know I've helped lots of people, and that's always my intention, just to empower people.
I certainly hope that you see it in your lifetime, because I don't think it's that we're that far from it. Some of my friends who are pretty staunch feminists, sometimes I tell them, careful how far the pendulum swings, because they sometimes want to do to men what they feel men have done to them. And I'm like, I think that we need to be centered, and that we need to be balanced, and coming back at them, that's not really the answer. And that's the beauty of your book, is that
burning our bra didn't really work in the 60s. I don't think that worked. All the protesting didn't work. All the hatred of men. Feminism is like, no, that was the rising of the energy, but the energy of the sacred feminine, there's strength and gentle strength, like Mother Mary. That's what I always tried to be like, gentle strength, holding compassionate empathy. And that's the sacred walk. That's the divine union, that you have the compassion and empathy, and you have that gentle strength, but you can also be firm and strong. I don't think of myself as, well, people have misunderstood me thinking that I'm meek. I'm not really meek. And there's a gentleman at the Angel Ministries, Reverend Bob, who, this makes me laugh because I don't think of myself this way, but he says, underneath your sweetness and all your smiles, he says, there's a lot of steel, he says. I'm like, oh, okay, because I don't think of myself that way. But that is the sacred balance of the male-female, that the sacred feminine can support the masculine can support the feminine. It's that balance. So we don't have to have the anger or the feminism, because that's not going to do any good. Anger does not bring peace.
And also, I think what's rising is the feminine in the masculine, in the men as well, that quality of loving, nurturing, listening.
Someone like you. Someone just like you.
Balanced.
Yeah.
A little more balanced there. And then I think to hold a kind of revenge attitude, it wouldn't be a feminine quality. I think it would be trying to adopt the masculine, out of balance masculine. So I think that this whole rise of feminine energy and feminine wisdom will give great benefit to both men and women.
And how did you become you? Because you hold that sacred feminine energy without you. That's what we like about you. I mean, from many things, but yeah. I mean, because there's not a lot of, like, you know.
No idea.
You have no idea? You're just born that way.
Yeah, I think it's coming through from many lifetimes, probably. Mm-hmm. I was the youngest of a large family of 5 girls and 2 boys. I just kind of had a long upbringing.
Yeah.
Probably.
But you had 5 older sisters.
Yeah. Fortunately, very nurturing sisters.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Best to be the only boy, right? Or the last boy.
Yeah, second, just 2 boys.
Yeah, with the baby. Yeah.
I've studied spirituality since I was young. That's why we're doing this today.
Yeah, well, you're unique, you know. I mean, I don't know. Don't you think so, son?
Yes, and that's where I think more and more men are headed. They're getting comfortable with their more gentle side, more nurturing side. Just, it's been really fun for me to watch these men that I know become grandpas, and just watch how much more nurturing they are with their grandchildren than they were with their own kids, and just the beauty of it and the happiness and joy that it brings to these men to soften their hearts with these little joyous creatures. So I always try to see the positive side, and I think we're moving there. I'm seeing more and more people Yes.
That's right.
Someone at lunch mentioned about people who their whole lives have never read any esoteric books or spiritual books now are suddenly having an interest in these kinds of things that we perhaps took for granted in our teens. So,
Yeah.
and now we have these sort of leadership roles that we're taking in order to say, yeah, we've been looking at this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, that's right. Each one teach one, each one lead one.
I love that. Let's move on with your third book. What was your third book that you wrote?
Yeah, there we go again. Another book. This is Sarah. She's the daughter of Joshua and Mary Magdalene. It's called Sacred Wisdom, Teachings of Sarah, Goddess of Peace. It started forming in 2018 after I went to France. I went to southern France. I was gifted a trip to southern France. And I went to Sainte Marie de Lemure, which Sarah is honored as the gypsy servant by the Roma people and the gypsies in Sainte Marie de Lemure. The end of May, they honor her with a festival. I happened to go there and felt connected to that town and to the connection of the energy there. At that time when I went, I was not channeling Sarah, and I was not really aware much about Sarah. But then about a year later, Sarah's transmissions started coming through me to write this book.
For those who don't know who Sarah is.
Yeah, she's the daughter of Joshua and Mary Magdalene. So she is their first child. She is that representation. That's why I have the Grail. She's a representation of the missing Holy Grail that people are looking for. They think they're looking for this mysterious Grail from the Last Supper. But what they're really looking for is, again, the teachings, because this is a sequel to Divine Union, that Sarah is the representation of their teachings because she holds the bloodline of their energy of divine union, of the sacred balance of Mother, Father, God. So her teachings are about helping us. This is also another manual, like my first manual, the Christ teachings. This is a how-to book of how to merge into peace. And so she talks about her life here and how her life with her parents and how she became the ascended master and awakened. And then there are actually tools of enlightenment here in this book and what we call sacred flames that she's working with. She has her own signature vibration, which is held in the pearlescent white flame, which is innocence and purity. And so, again, this is a book that you work with. You just don't particularly read one time. Sarah, more and more people are understanding more about Sarah. There's several people who write and teach about Sarah. One is Rachel Goodwin from Denmark. I can't name all the other ones, but I happen to know Rachel because she did a testimony from my book, and she works with Sarah closely. But more and more people are aware of Sarah and her work and why she's here. But she's here as the next leg of the story. So she's here. Joshua and Mary brought the energy of divine union forward, and now her work is helping each of us to bring that energy forward. When I went to the country of Cyprus 2 years ago, my friend Jared owns an essential oil business, and Sarah had told me when I went that she wanted a signature vibration of the essential oil with her frequency in it. So we actually went out into the woods to the pine trees and created a wild pine spray and a wild pine essential oil. We actually went and cut
the boughs.
The boughs, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the boughs from the trees, brought them back, put them in the distillery or whatever that thing is that Jared put it in. And we made the oil and the frequencies and said, we prayed over it. I prayed over it with Sarah's frequency. So she has her own frequency.
Wow.
And so Jared sells those through his company called Leven, Liven.com. Based in Cyprus, all of the essential oils are pure. They're organically, all of the raw materials are from Cyprus and from the different farmers and the different growers there. And so everything is a pure essential oil, not diluted, not commercial. So he's been doing this for 4 years. But Sarah, I almost forgot that she'd asked me to do that. And then when I went to Cyprus, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to make the essential oils. I almost forgot. So I sell that along with the book if people are interested in working with the sprays, because the spray is infused with her peace and her energy, and the oil is infused with her peace and energy. The pine trees also, they say, represent magic in terms of magical frequency. And so her work in terms of helping us to bring that frequency of peace it's like she's working with the elementals, with the fairy realm. So that all of the realms of what I call purity and innocence of our original creation can be brought forth with Sarah's frequency of peace.
I did not know any of that, and I have that
Oh.
kind, so I can't wait to go home and use it and now know more about that. So we can get that direct from Levin, or we can get it on your website,
Yeah,
both places.
yeah.
And what about the rose geranium that they sell? Is that Mother Mary or?
Rose geranium is a vibration they call of royalty, because that frequency is about royalty. And so we sell it as a roll-on, or he sells it as a roll-on for people to really begin to truly honor themselves as royalty, because we're all royalty. We're all children of God. And once we begin to really honor ourselves and begin to see ourselves as valuable, because most people don't see themselves as valuable. I shouldn't say most, but, lots of times people still think that they're sinners because that's what's told in the Bible, and they have to forgive their sins and carry on. And yet you're really magnificent spiritual beings of light that are full of wisdom and God's grace. And so that's what that is about, is a way to help to feel
Our own royalty.
Yeah, the beauty of who we are, so that we're not just lowly human beings that are sinners, that have no power. Yeah, I'm sure that you can expand maybe upon that a little bit more in terms of, I don't know, did you go to church?
I did go to church. I had the weird blessing of having a very early traumatic life. I just was very blessed to come into my spirituality a little earlier. My brother just told me a story recently, which I can't believe I'd never heard before, of me going to church at like 3 or 4 and standing on the pew and yelling out, "That's not what Jesus said." I think that I was very lucky because there were just things that I would hear in church, and I just didn't take them into my heart. So I feel like I've always known, even Yeshua, just the first time I read that his name was Yeshua, I just started sobbing, bawling, crying, saying, I know that somehow. So I think that your book, Divine Union, I can imagine the courage it must have taken to publish that, because it is different than what the Bible teaches.
I did a great trepidation, but I did it anyway. And then I've had such good response to it. Really, really good response. So many people saying it's really helpful. So I don't have any trepidation about it. And I'm okay. It's how many years later? 9 years later.
Yeah, and the Da Vinci Code, I think, kind of helped open some people's eyes to. It's funny, you see a movie.
Bloodline being real.
Yes, and people who maybe couldn't have gone there by the end of that movie, they're like, okay, that's interesting. And so maybe the Da Vinci Code has helped
wake people up,
bring a path to your book, or which could be made into a movie with people having their eyes opened a little bit and their hearts open to, okay, I can believe that. Especially today, where we watch history being changed right before our eyes, and we can see, at least in my lifetime, this is the most blatant, where I can see how things are changed by who's ever in power. Just change the storyline.
People always like a good love story.
And I think one of the things about the book that would make a good movie is that you have a discourse of Yeshua, and then the next chapter is Magdalene. It would make a good movie, like balancing back and forth, scene changes, and perspective change.
Right, yes.
Tying everything together. So
yeah.